Before we get to today's IU segment, please let me let you know what's coming up this weekend. We have already released on Saturday Mike Rich's reaction to the Pacers' loss in Miami on Friday. Also, we have basketball reports from Oak Hill's win over Delta with Marion Chronicle sports editor Scott Hunt, and Delville's overtime win over Madison Grant with the Action Sports Network's Kevin Helfrich. Those will be out very soon this morning, sometime in the AM. At 1 o'clock every single day, we have our daily report where we go over all the high school, college, and sports news from Blackford, Delaware, Grant, Howard, Madison, Tipton, and northern Hamilton counties, plus IU, Purdue, Pacers, Colts, IndyCar, anything relevant to Central Indiana sports fans. Speaking of which, IndyCar opens this weekend, and we will start our IndyCar coverage this weekend. Not exactly sure when. We're hoping to have a season preview, but a wedding is in the way. On Sunday, we'll have our boys swimming state final scoreboard, and we'll get a update from Scott Hunt on Oak Hill's Grant Cates quest for a state championship. Also, Yorktown's Henry Coe will swim for a state championship in the butterfly. Also, Sunday, we'll have our girls basketball state final scoreboard show. Grant Shouse's reaction to IU's game at Washington. And on Monday, we will have our boys basketball postseason special with Michelle Garman and others. And also, we will have our girls basketball state finals recap with Michelle Garman and Grant Shouse. And once again, 1 o'clock every day, our sports center style scoreboard show for high school, college, and professional sports in Central Indiana. You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report, episode 190.3. Our IU guy Grant Shouse previews the Hoosiers game in Seattle on Saturday against Washington.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
Grant, another must-win game for the Indiana Hoosiers on Saturday. They are in Seattle to take on the Washington Huskies at 6 o'clock. The game can be seen on Peacock. Indiana 17 and 11, 8 and 9 in the Big Ten. Washington 13 and 15 overall, 4 and 13 in the Big Ten. But like Penn State, not a pushover, especially on the road.
It's the biggest game because it's the next game. If you're Indiana, you have to get them any way you can get them. Like, if it means going down to the wire and having to beat Washington on a last-second shot or playing the way you did against Purdue in the second half on Sunday, then that's what you got to do. And every game matters, especially here in the next 30 minutes when the calendar flips to March. Every game matters.
You're
And
right, Grant. You're right, Grant. Every game does matter, but I think this one matters more than the Oregon game in particular, because that's a good team, and would be a quality. I mean, if you get that win, that's a huge win against Oregon, obviously, and against Ohio State at home. Is like Washington. That's a game you've got to win. So they've got to win 2 of these last 3 if they want to be NCAA tournament team.
If they lose tomorrow, then I think they're out. Unless
would
they
have
go
to
on
make
a
a
run in the
run,
Big
yeah,
Ten tournament.
right.
They'd have to go on a run, but if they lose tomorrow, then they're out, in my opinion. It only hurts
Agreed.
their tournament chances. It's obviously not going to help their tournament chances if they lost to Oregon, but if they lose tomorrow, then have fun in the new college basketball crown or whatever it is. Now they're playing in Vegas.
And that's no fun.
No, that's no fun. Nobody wants to be in it. I mean, nobody wants to go to the NIT. That's why it's called the NIT. It stands for not in tournament.
Well, and it's fine for some programs. It is
Right,
not
like
fine
the
for
Indiana
Indiana.
States of the world last year who went to the
Right.
NIT championship. That's great for that program.
Exactly.
and that's what the NIT should be for. It should be for those mid-major programs that were good enough to win their conference tournament, may have won their conference regular season, but didn't win the tournament, therefore don't make the NCAA tournament. So I think that's what the NIT should be for, and that's why they started this college basketball crown, which is their like an 8-team thing, 12-team thing. I don't know what they're doing, but it doesn't matter. Indiana needs to avoid that at all costs. I think this team is starting to rally around each other, with Mike Woodson announcing his retirement at the end of the year. And since then, Indiana's 3-2. And the 2 games they've lost, they probably should have won. So they're looking at it, they think in that 5-game stretch, they should be 5-0. So it's so huge to go get a win tomorrow. Of course, Washington has great Asabor, who is a great player, no pun intended, that
he certainly is.
That transferred from Utah State.
He will probably be the best player on the floor.
I think he'll be the greatest player on the floor.
There you go.
Danny Sprinkle did a phenomenal job at Utah State. Now he moved on to Washington, and Utah State's having a great year right now with Jared Calhoun. But
he'll probably get Washington turned around.
I hope so. When teams like Washington are good, that's good for college basketball. Teams that aren't normally known for their basketball or even for their football and that side of things, and they become good for a year or a stretch of time, I think that's good for the game. I hope Washington can get good. But going out there, it's playing in an unusual setting, I think could maybe play a factor with Indiana, just due to the fact they've never been there before. And what a cool thing it is for the alumni out west. Maybe to be honest with you, there are alumni that are out there in that Washington and Oregon area, especially in LA, and even if they want to come up from LA, those alumni or fans that live out west and they exist. What a cool thing for them to get to come there and see that. Like Purdue, when they played at Washington, they had a ton of fans there. They had a ton of Purdue fans that live out on the West Coast, and that's probably the closest opportunity they're going to get to see Purdue play out there. And same with Indiana. Same with every fan base that has to travel out there, every team that travels out there. So a cool opportunity, a good opportunity, but got to focus on winning tomorrow's game.
I want to talk about one of the best freshmen in the country for Washington, Zoom Diallo. What a great couple of great names for the Huskies. He's averaging 11 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists a game. As a true freshman. So they're dangerous.
Believe it or not, the best name in college basketball plays for a school in Indiana at Valparaiso with a guy named Always Right or All Right or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah, some cool names out there, but Washington is a team that is probably going to miss the Big Ten tournament. I don't think they're going to make the Big Ten tournament. And which makes this another inexcusable,
a win in this game would certainly help.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I don't know. I think Washington may be dead last in the league.
They are.
Yeah, they. I don't think it's going to matter if they win tomorrow, but it's inexcusable for Indiana inexcusable for them to lose tomorrow, and get into the Big Ten. If they lose tomorrow, even if they win and I think lose their next 2, they're going to be playing on day 1 of the tournament. And I think if you're Indiana, you want to avoid that, because then that just makes your chances of getting in the NCAA tournament from there even greater, because no team that plays on the first day of the tournament is going to go win it unless you're like last year's North Carolina State team, and that was in the ACC, a whole different kind of format. So if you're Indiana, you want to get yourself in a position on this road trip to play on the second day of the tournament, because you're not going to get a double bye. So you want to be able to play, you want to have the 5 through 6 or 5 through 9 seed, I guess. And I think if they play themselves into a position where they can win out, I think they can get probably about the 8 seed in the tournament, which is great. And that puts them in a position to win a game and hopefully upset the number one team, which would probably be Michigan or Michigan State. And we've already seen that they've beaten Michigan State.
Oh, it's
Uh,
wide open. That Big Ten is wide open.
they're
The top to the number 12 is not that wide.
No, it's not. And there's no margin for error with these teams in the Big Ten. I saw someone the other day say that Big Ten basketball this year was horrible because they watched the 49-46 Michigan Nebraska game. Well, if you think it's horrible, you obviously have not been watching this year and especially last 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's been
Like
very good.
Big Ten basketball in the last, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks in the month of February has been really good. It's been great.
I'm just not sure there's a national championship contender. I think it would actually probably be a surprise to get a Final Four team. I think that's probably the biggest issue with the Big Ten, but it's very deep and very talented, and every team can beat you on a given night, including Washington.
Of course, and that's what makes the league so great, in my opinion, is it doesn't
Absolutely.
matter. It does not matter. I'm looking forward to the Big Ten tournament. I know we'll probably talk about it more down the road, but
Yes, we will.
uh, I'm looking forward to Indiana getting in that because Indiana, I think, Indiana's going to make it. I don't think they can unless something catastrophic and they lose the next three, which I mean is obviously possible. But even then, I still think they would make it as probably the 13, 14, or 15. The
Hmm.
bottom three for people who don't know
Right.
in the 18 team league, the bottom three don't qualify. So if you're 15th in the conference and up, you're going to the Big Ten tournament. And so you don't want to be one of the bottom three. And Indiana has played their way out of that position by beating Michigan State, beating Purdue, and now beating Penn State and having these close games. Indiana, like we said, is 12-0 in quad 2, 3, and 4 games this year. Maybe 13-0 after Penn State. I could be wrong, but they played a good schedule. And to be 12 or 13-0 in quad 3, 4, quad 2, 3, and 4 is really good. And I know your quad 1 record, you're like Indiana's like 4-12, but that's still not bad. That means you've played a really good schedule. You just haven't won those big games. And I think tomorrow would be a quad 2 or quad 3 game, and just hopefully you can build on that resume to get towards the tournament.
And by the way, the three teams on the outside right now are 4-13 Washington, 5-13 Penn State, and 6-12 Iowa. Also on the bubble, USC, Minnesota are half a game ahead of Iowa, but also Northwestern and Rutgers could also fall down there, and
I
Nebraska if
could
everything went wrong.
I could see any of that happening. I'm surprised Minnesota has strung together some wins that they have because I saw them in a
Yeah,
game in person at IU this year back in December. Well, you and I talked after that game, if you remember, and that
that's right.
I was not impressed with Minnesota. I'm surprised they are still alive, and
Yeah, they have 6 wins in the Big Ten.
yeah,
So,
that shocks me.
me too.
Of course,
I'm
Indiana did not play well again. I watched their game against Washington a few weeks ago, and that was a really good game. But you mentioned Iowa being in the one of the bottom three teams. That just makes the loss for Indiana out there at Iowa look so much worse.
It
Like
does,
that's
but like I said, none of these teams are really bad. I mean, Iowa was 9-2 in the pre-Big Ten. Penn State was 10-1 in the pre-Big Ten and beat Purdue early in that.
yeah.
Washington was 9-2 in the pre-Big Ten. They're not horrible teams.
No, none of them are, and I mean, like we said, that's why the league's so great. But Indiana is in better position on the bubble, I believe now, Greg, than Ohio State is at this moment. And
Absolutely.
Ohio State has dropped some games here down the stretch, losing a close one to Michigan a few weeks ago, lost to Michigan State. One of the bigger wins that's keeping them alive is Purdue, the Purdue game. And Purdue getting the win tonight over UCLA I think was just what they like they needed that so
Yes,
bad.
they did.
They needed to just win one, and I wouldn't be surprised if they don't win out and then go win the Big Ten tournament. I'm serious. I wouldn't be surprised if they don't lose another game until the NCAA tournament.
I wouldn't
And
be surprised either, and I also wouldn't be surprised at all if they lose at Illinois on next Friday, and then lose the first game of the Big Ten tournament, and then lose the first game of the. It wouldn't surprise me either because they have weaknesses, and if they get the wrong matchups, they could be vulnerable. But Matt Painter's great, and there's a chance with matchups they can make a long run.
yeah, they get Rutgers on Tuesday, and that'll be an interesting test. Seems like Rutgers always brings it to Mackey, but the Illinois game is going to be key. But I would take Purdue in that game. They're sitting fourth in the league right now, 2.5 games out of first place, and I think they're. Uh, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're out of the hunt. I would believe in a Big
Yes.
Ten regular
Yeah, yeah,
season
yeah.
title,
Being
and
a top 4 seed though is still in play.
yeah, and boosting your resume by beating UCLA tonight is huge.
Yeah,
Indiana, like we said, is in really good position. We sound like a broken record, but they're in position to be in position.
that's right. That's
And
kind of the motto right now.
yeah, in position to be in position. And if they win tomorrow, hopefully by this time tomorrow, we are saying they are in position. So I
All
think
right. Well,
one game can change that.
let's hope that happens. Let's hope the IU fans show out. And thank you so much for your time, Grant. Enjoy the Class 3A Girls State Championship. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm glad you get a chance to do that.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Very humbled, very honored to be a part of that, and looking to talking more basketball with you here down the stretch as we transition here just about 15 minutes into the month of March, greatest on the calendar.
Happy March, my man.
Yep, happy March, Greg. Thank you.
Thanks once again to our new IU guy, Grant Shouse. Look forward to working with him and talking more IU. Of course, we'll talk women's basketball with Grant at times. Also, Michelle Garman is a season ticket holder, an IU grad, a huge IU women's fan. So we'll have lots of segments on them as the NCAA tournament, the Big Ten and the NCAA tournament approach. And we're going to start having some IndyCar, Purdue, Pacers, Colts, more and more stuff like that. Of course, our focus will always remain high school sports, but we want to bring you like a newspaper every day. You can pick and choose which articles you want to read. You can pick and choose which segments you want to listen to. Speaking of which, thank you for listening. Always appreciate it. Please help spread the word about the Central Indiana Sports Report by telling a friend about it. Just copy and paste this episode right into a text and send it. Please do it. Appreciate it. The Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of IPG Media. And I love people.